Hello pilots, Thunderous Wolf here. Welcome to episode 6 of Planes of Ace Combat. Today's episode will be a short and sweet one, as we'll be taking a look at the X-29A. An aircraft that I may or may not have forgotten about when covering the F-5E and F-20A. So, I'm remedying that oopsie here. As the X in the aircraft's name suggests, the X-29A is an experimental aircraft that demands steady hands from any pilots who choose to fly it. If the pilot can tame this unstable aircraft though, then they'll be able to utilize its speed and mobility to great effect. The X-29A is geared towards air-to-air combat first and foremost, with its strength being found when getting up close and personal with the enemy. While the X-29A does have an air-to-ground special weapon or two that can be equipped most of the time as well, it's recommended that pilots steer clear of those due to this aircraft's low stability and defense. The X-29A's first appearance is in Ace Combat 2, where it's available for both the normal and extra path. Featuring impressive speed and respectable air-to-air stats, this aircraft is perfect for wiping out any aerial enemies that dare to cross your path. That being said, pilots need to constantly be aware of their aircraft's condition, as the stability and defense of it is very low. It doesn't take a whole lot to have an X-29A shot out of the sky, and pilots overshooting their aim against targets can be a common occurrence for those who are unable to keep this aircraft in check. After being absent from Ace Combat 3 and 4, the X-29A returns in Ace Combat 5, the Unsung War, also known in Europe as Ace Combat Squadron Leader. The biggest change from how this aircraft worked in Ace Combat 2 is that here it's a little easier to fly. Granted, it's not winning any awards for stability by any means, but at least it's not as easy to overshoot targets here in 5. Once more geared towards air-to-air combat, the special weapon being quick maneuver air-to-air missiles reflects this. That being said, as I've stated in previous episodes of Planes of Ace Combat, the QAAMs in Ace Combat 5 aren't that good. That being said, it is possible for pilots to get some more use out of these missiles given the X-29A's strengths in close-range dogfights. This means pilots will more than likely be in range for QAAMs in a lot of cases. Of course, this doesn't guarantee kills by any means, but every pilot knows that having good positioning is crucial in dogfights. Ace Combat 5's X-29A ace is Daredevil, who shows up after Nagase is found. Daredevil is a relatively easy enemy ace to take down. Pilots may have to divert their attention from him in order to keep Sea Goblins safe, but once the rescue team has some breathing room, pilots and their squadron can focus their attention back onto the enemy ace. As is the case with a lot of aircraft that make it from 5 to this game, the X-29A in Ace Combat 0 the Belkan War, also known in Europe as Ace Combat the Belkan War, is essentially identical to the previous game's iteration. The only notable change here is with the addition of 2 air-to-ground special weapons with fuel-air explosive bombs and long-range air-to-ground missiles. Not only is it contradictory to have an air-to-ground special weapon majority while this aircraft is designated as a fighter, pilots are still best suited with taking the QAAMs. Pilots only get 4 FAEBs, which is hardly enough to cause any real damage, and pilots would have to expose themselves to AA fire and SAMs at close range when flying such a fragile aircraft. LAGMs are better if pilots are looking for an air-to-ground special weapon. There's 10 of these, which is a more respectable amount, and as the name suggests, they can be fired at long range. Again though, this thing's specialty is in close-range dogfights. Ace Combat 0 has 4 different enemy X-29A aces. Towson can be found in the round table on normal difficulty or higher as a mercenary after the campaign has already been completed once before in the midst of the dogfighting that leads up to the Rot Squadron fight. Hundert shows up in Juggernaut's Operation Gelnikos, 4A, under any ace style on ace difficulty, always showing up no matter what. Felice can be found in Sword of Annihilation on normal difficulty or higher as a knight after the campaign has already been completed once before after all 4 of the jamming facilities have been destroyed, and lastly, Bauer shows up in the Valley of Kings under any ace style on any difficulty as you're doing the tunnel runs against the V2 launch control modules. The X-29A's handheld debut can be found in Ace Combat X Skies of Deception. Featuring the exact same special weapons loadout from Ace Combat 0, this aircraft has great speed and mobility and alright stats everywhere else. While the QAAMs haven't been that good to use before with 5 and 0, these missiles work great in X. Because of how the missile tracking and hitboxes work in X, the QAAMs are able to be used at more extreme firing angles and track enemies better. The FAEBs and LAGMs are here as well, with the former still being pretty pretty weak, even with an increase from 4 to 6 uses, and the latter still being a solid choice for air-to-ground combat, even if the aircraft itself isn't designed for that. Ace Combat X's X-29A ace is Viper, who shows up in Striking Point. Viper spawns in alongside the Laysath reinforcements that come in from Sachana Air Base if the player is able to get them to show up in 4 minutes or less from when the mission begins. This is the first aircraft and game combo in the series so far where I can definitively say that it's just not worth it to fly this aircraft. Reason being, the aircraft's ammo, or rather, the lack of it. For the regular missile types, you get 54 standard, 36 high accuracy, 72 lightweight, and 18 heavy missiles. When compared to the average number of missiles other lower tier aircraft get, that's rough. What makes this situation go from rough to downright laughable though are the special weapon ammo counts. Only 5 quick maneuver air-to-air missiles, 5 fuel-air explosive bombs, 9 short-range aerial suppression missiles, and 8 long-range air-to-ground missiles. These are the kinds of numbers I would expect from something like a plane meant to do reconnaissance missions, not close-range dogfighting. It also doesn't help that the stats across the board for the X-29 in this game are average, though, credit where it's due, they can be boosted slightly with parts. But even with the boost from parts, the low ammo count means that pilots aren't going to get as much from this plane as they would with other options. Joint Assault's X-29A ace is Katana, who appears in Bird Hunt during the second phase of the mission where you have to wipe out the remaining Valahia pilots who are covering the Spiritus' retreat. The X-29A in Assault Horizon Legacy can be a crazy maneuverable aircraft to fly given the handling model along with any parts that can be equipped. Not maxed out XFA-27 levels of mobility, but still very maneuverable. If pilots can tame the low stability of this aircraft, then they can use the mobility to dodge attacks and get into good firing angles against targets. Able to take quick maneuver air-to-air missiles, gun pods, and long-range air-to-air missiles into battle, the mobility mixed with the different possible special weapons means the X-29 is a versatile aircraft to take into battle. Assault Horizon Legacy's ace is Zhao, who shows up midway through escorting the allied fleet. He'll keep moving across the battlefield in a straight line, making him an easy enemy ace to shoot down due to him only taking evasive action once you get a good firing position. The X-29A in Infinity was an air-to-air focused close-range dogfighting machine that excelled in taking out aerial threats one by one. The special weapons were indicative of this, said special weapons being quick maneuver air-to-air missiles, semi-active air-to-air missiles, and high-powered air-to-air missiles. It should be no surprise that the weakest stat for the X-29 is its air-to-ground capabilities. When fully maxed out, and excluding any parts that could be equipped to mitigate this, the X-29 could only ever get to a C+ in air-to-ground. Meanwhile, all the other stats are filled with A's and S's. There were 2 other variants of the X-29A that pilots could have flown in this game. A variant featuring the Greek mythology crab Cancer, who gets crushed by Hercules, and an experimental variant based on the real-life livery used by NASA during test flights. The only notable thing about these 2 variants is that alongside the A's and S's across the board when maxed out, they could also get up to a B instead of a C+ in air-to-ground, which made these variants slightly better at air-to-ground combat. The X-29A can be a handful to fly, and sometimes it's not worth it, as shown with entries like Joint Assault. However, it can't be denied that if a pilot is able to keep the low stability and defense in check as they fly it, this aircraft can be great for close-range dogfights where enemies are picked off one by one. Thank you all for watching episode 6 of Planes of Ace Combat. I apologize for having a dummy doo-doo head stupid moment and forgetting about this aircraft for the F-5E and F-20A. I'll try not to have any moments like this again. But given how many aircraft there are in Ace Combat, sooner or later I'll probably have another moment like this again. In any case, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're looking forward to the next episode, where we'll be taking a look at the MiG-29A Fulcrum, the MiG-33 Fulcrum SS, and the MiG-35D Super Fulcrum. See you then, pilots. Take care.